Okay, so in this video, we're going to clarify what we mean when we use the word argument. This is a word that we use in our ordinary discourse, and we know perfectly well what it means. You've had arguments with people. Sometimes they're uncomfortable and emotional and heated, but that's not what we mean when we use the word argument. We're going to mean something very precise, and it's what I have on the board here. An argument is made out of statements or claims, so we're going to need to define that. Some of which are the premises or reasons, and one of which is the conclusion or the main claim. And there's supposed to be some kind of relationship between the premises and the conclusion. The premises are supposed to support the conclusion. They're provided as evidence for or reasons for believing the conclusion. And an argument is the whole package: premises, conclusion, support, relationship. So let's take a look at a very simple example. All roses are flowers, and some flowers are red. Thus, some roses are red. This is an argument because it has the various parts indicated above. There are premises or reasons given, and there is a conclusion drawn, and it's clear, especially since I've used the word thus and words mean things, I'm communicating that I take these to be reasons for believing this. For what it's worth, this is a bad argument. You might immediately judge it to be acceptable or not have noticed that. We'll talk about that more in a while. But this is a bad argument, but we're not going to worry about whether an argument is good or bad right now. We're just going to look at what we mean when we use the word. Now note, this one and the same argument could be communicated in more than one way by making different choices as writers. Here's a slightly different way of putting it. Some flowers are red, thus some roses are red. I didn't italicize the some. That doesn't really matter for expressing the reasoning. That's a point of sort of emphasis. And I've left out the all roses are flowers part. If I said some flowers are red, thus some roses are red, I'm leaving you, the listener or the reader, to fill in the fact that I'm assuming and all roses are flowers, right? So when the thing I'm assuming is just common background knowledge, the listener or reader will do that for us and we leave stuff implicit, but it's also a way that we can perhaps make our arguments less clear. One of the things that we often do in developing philosophical arguments is try to identify all the stuff that was implicit and that went just assumed and not examined, and go further and examine it. Sometimes it matters. This is a silly case, so perhaps it would be just fine to leave all roses are flowers unstated. Here's another way of expressing one and the same argument. It must be true that some roses are red, since some flowers are red and all roses are flowers. Here we have the same conclusion drawn. Now I've added a bunch of it must be true that. What? It must be true that what? What's your conclusion? Some roses are red. Why think that? Reason indicator, some flowers are red and all roses are flowers. So we use some words to indicate that something's a conclusion. We can alternatively indicate that the other bit is reasons. Sometimes we add a bit of extra wording to clarify what we're stating as true. Point being, there are lots of ways to express in writing the underlying reasoning. Okay, so we've defined what an argument is, and an argument is made up of statements. The premises and conclusion are all statements. What exactly do we mean by statement? A statement is just a meaningful declarative sentence that is either true or false. Or, more precisely, a statement is that which a meaningful declarative sentence asserts or expresses, because it's not the sentence, it's what the sentence says or asserts as true or false. That is the statement in question. So I could make a statement in English or in Spanish. I don't know how to say the cat is on the mat in Spanish, but if I did, it would mean or assert the same thing as if I said it in English. And this despite many years of trying to learn Spanish. Let's look at least a couple examples. So we already said that in our previous argument, all of the parts are statements. So here are some examples of statements. All roses are flowers. That's an assertion. Some flowers are red. Another assertion. Some roses are red. Another one. So the previous argument included 3 statements, 2 sentences, but 3 statements. We were able to state the same argument in just 1 sentence, but it still includes all 3 statements. This one includes 2 statements explicitly, but that third one is implicit in the reasoning. Okay, so those are some examples of statements, but a few clarifications are in order before we move on. Consider these 2 statements. Dalit ate ice cream for dinner, and you shouldn't eat ice cream for dinner. Sometimes we might think that, well, this is clearly a statement, and this one is not. This is just an opinion. That is not the distinction we're getting at here. Are we asserting something is true or false? This happens to be a purported descriptive fact, either Dalit ate ice cream or not. It's a descriptive fact of the matter. This is an opinion, but it's a statement of opinion. It's a claim. You shouldn't eat ice cream for dinner. And we could ask, oh yeah? Why not? And we could give reasons to support it. Ice cream is high in sugar and blah, whatever your reasons are. So the point is this could be part of an argument. It could be the conclusion of an argument. And that brings us to a clarification about our precise definition of argument. Recall we said an argument is the whole package. Sometimes we state a conclusion, something that we could argue about, like you shouldn't eat ice cream for dinner, and we might want to initially say, well, that's an argument. That's not an argument because no reasons have been given. It's only an argument if reasons have been given. Perhaps this is the conclusion of an argument. What reasons do you have for why I shouldn't eat ice cream for dinner? Because I've got reasons why I should. We can argue about this, but only if we're given reasons. So, clarifications. Statements may be true or false. A false statement is still a statement, and statements may be descriptive. They might state simple facts. They might describe how something is or could be, or they may be normative. That is, they may express an evaluation about what's good or bad, about what we should or shouldn't do. Okay, our next concept is standard form. To put an argument into standard form is to distill the argument from the passage by numbering each of the claims in the argument, listing the premises in the conclusion, and visually indicating which one is the conclusion. So here is a template. You've got list, premise, 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 however many there are. There could be 1, there could be 10, and conclusion. And it's clear because I've drawn a line that the one at the bottom is the conclusion, and it's also clear that the premises are supposed to support the conclusion. Now, in this case, the bar indicates that this is the conclusion, but there are other ways to do it. Some conclusions are indicated with just using a word like thus if you're typing it up and you don't want to draw a bar, or sometimes the symbol for therefore is used to indicate the conclusion. The point is just making it super clear what the reasons given are and what the conclusion is. Let's put our previous example into standard form. Okay, I've copied and pasted it, so I'm just going to start with all roses are flowers is clearly a statement. I'm going to remove the and because the and just tells us I've listed 2 things. The fact that I've emphasized some isn't super crucial for capturing the reasoning, so I'm going to remove that. And some flowers are red. The thus tells me that this is the conclusion. But now I just have 3 listed statements, and I want to make it clear that this one's supposed to be the conclusion. One thing I can do is I can draw a line, however I want to do it. Or I could just add something that says, this is the conclusion. This helps us to extract or distill the bare reasoning from a passage, which often includes more than just the reasoning. Communication is more than just stating reasons and conclusions like a robot. That being said, sometimes when we are trying to understand and evaluate arguments, it helps to do something more robotic. Just get the reasons and the conclusion on the table as clearly as possible. Standard form is especially nice if the argument is simple or if it's just quicker to kind of write out the premises and the conclusion. One thing that it lacks is the ability to see how the premises work together because we're just listing them. So there's another way of visualizing arguments that I really like called argument mapping. Let's take a look at argument mapping. Argument mapping is a way to visualize the argument. We'll put the conclusion at the top of the map, and then any premises we were given go under the conclusion, and if there are further premises to support those premises, we can continue building them. And one thing that's nice about argument mapping is it allows us to capture different structures. So in this argument, we have 3 independent, separate premises for the claim we're given. In this one, we have premises that work together. What does that mean? Let's take a look at 2 examples. Okay, here are 2 concrete examples of arguments that have different structures. Now I'm going to open up MindMap, which is the software that I use to visualize arguments, and I'm going to stick the 2 arguments I want to map in here, and then I'm going to start mapping them. Okay, so some roses are red, I've already decided was my conclusion, and all roses are flowers is another premise, and some flowers are red is a premise, and I can turn this into an argument. I'm going to do it with the next one. Alright, now what is my conclusion this time? You shouldn't spend so much time using social media apps. Spending a lot of time on these apps is bad for your mental well-being. Also, everything you do is being tracked. Okay, is there an argument? If so, what's the conclusion? What are the premises? I'm just going to start separating them into the different claims being made. You shouldn't spend so much time on social media apps. Spending a lot of time is bad for your mental well-being. And everything you do is being tracked. How do these relate to one another? Now, in the original, there aren't any argument indicator words, no because or thus, but I can tell that I'm being given reasons why I shouldn't spend so much time on social media apps, and the also tells me that I'm listing 2 things together. This is a conjunction of 2 things, and these 2 things happen to be reasons. Now, the claim here is that unlike the previous example where the reasons work together to support the conclusion, this time I've been given 2 independent reasons for why I shouldn't use social media apps. And they're independent because each one on its own supports the conclusion. The fact that everything you do is being tracked makes sense as a reason for why you shouldn't spend so much time on social media, even if there are no issues for your mental well-being in using these apps. And vice versa, even if nothing you do is being tracked, if it still affects your mental well-being, that makes sense as a reason for why you shouldn't use them. So each one is a standalone reason. But sometimes reasons work together. All roses are flowers, some flowers are red, therefore some roses are red. It's clear that these 2 are supposed to work together to support the claim. This is a weird case though, because it's actually a bad argument. Just to clarify how the 2 premises can work together to support a conclusion, let's change it so that the conclusion actually does follow. And we'll return to this example later. So all roses are flowers, and now let's assume, and all flowers are red. What should we conclude if we have those 2 premises? What would follow? Think about it. Well, if all roses are flowers and all flowers are red, then it follows that all roses are red. And if we take away this point, the fact that all roses are flowers doesn't support the claim that all roses are red. It's only if we also know that and all flowers are red. So these 2 need each other to support the conclusion. And similarly, this one's a little bit less obvious, but if all we're given is all flowers are red, therefore all roses are red, we have to be assuming and roses are flowers, otherwise the conclusion doesn't follow. If it turns out roses are a kind of mammal, it doesn't follow, not flowers at all. But since this is a bit of our background knowledge, we kind of automatically fill it in. These 2 premises need each other in order to support this conclusion. But let's go back to the original argument we started with. Okay, I said this was a bad argument. There are two ways to visualize objections to arguments. We can object to claims in an argument. So let's say it's not true that all roses are flowers. Some roses are cats or something, are not flowers. If I were to put something here, that would be giving a reason to believe this is false. But even if we accept that both of these are true, it is true, in fact, that all roses are flowers, and it's true, in fact, that some flowers are red. Does it follow that some roses are red? Now, note the conclusion also happens to be true. So many people are likely to judge that this is a good argument. True premises, true conclusion, but the premises actually don't lead to this conclusion. And so I can put an objection in this spot right here that says, even if these two things are true, it doesn't follow that this also has to be true. How is that? How could it be that even if 2.1 and 2.2 are true, the conclusion doesn't have to be true? Imagine a world in which roses are indeed flowers, so this is true, that come in white and yellow only. But other flowers come in red, carnations, etc., so this is red, just not roses. In this world, all roses are flowers and some flowers are red, but roses aren't among those red flowers. This is possible. So these premises don't lead to this conclusion. They're all true, but not for these reasons, okay? So what we'd say about this argument is, it looks like these two are supposed to work together, but they fail to do so. They're misleading. They're likely to mislead people. So this is a special kind of bad argument. We'll look at it again later. And this is how we would visualize where it goes wrong. It's not a problem with either premise, it's a problem with the support relationship. Okay, in this video, we gave a precise definition of argument and of statement, the thing arguments are made up of, and we've looked at two ways of distilling and visualizing arguments, by listing them and by mapping them. In the next video, we are going to look at standards for evaluating arguments, for saying whether an argument is good or bad.